This video contains spoilers for Arcane Season 1 and 2. Do you like seeing people punched in the face? I usually don't, but I make an exception when Vi is the one punching, because her hands are not only her weapon, but also the main tool she uses to interact with the world. By observing Vi's hands, we can understand many things about her core traits, character arc, relationships, especially with Jinx, and even figure out her future, which are all topics we are going to analyze in this video. Vi is a fighter, this is obvious. But why is she a fighter? There are two main reasons. One reason explains why Vi needed to become a fighter, because of the difficult life condition she grew up in. She learned that she had to be stronger than the obstacles and dangers around her in order to survive. And she also knows that some people, like her sister, might not be strong enough to survive in a context with this logic. Therefore, she takes on the role of the strong shield for her loved ones. She continuously does this with Powder, while also encouraging her not to feel inferior and trying to grant her a better future in which she can shine. Another reason, which explains how Vi could become such a good fighter, is Vander. Vander used to be an outstanding fighter before he stopped when he adopted Vi and Powder. But he probably taught his skills to Vi and, intentionally or not, encouraged this attitude in her. Even when scolding her for her reckless jump into a street fight in episode 1, season 1, he's still proud to know she has won. Vander's role as a mentor for Vi, especially concerning fights, is evident in season 1. He introduces the concept of responsibility to her. In episode 1, he teaches her that, by being the leader of her young team, she's not only the strongest, but also the one who takes decisions for the whole group. Vander tells her she must be aware of the possible dangerous consequences for herself and for the weaker others that she put in this situation. And it is no use being the strongest and fighting to protect them if then she is the first one to expose them to risk. He says that her fists will create more problems rather than solve them. Another lesson Vander teaches Vi is about the cost of fighting in episode 2. Vi is eager to fight in order to earn everything she can. She wants a better life and she is willing to fight in order to obtain it, or at least try. Vander reminds her a lesson that he himself learned the hard way. Fighting can obtain successes, but it also has a price. Therefore, one must be ready to the risk of losing something, maybe a lot of things, while fighting to obtain one goal. Vi becomes aware that, as much as she is very willing to fight, she also has many things she doesn't want to lose. There is a third lesson that Vi probably learned when she was young, but is reminded of by a vision of Vander in episode 9. I feel the need to discuss this scene because I read a widespread misconception about it, and I want to correct it. Vi has been beaten up by Sevika and is almost quitting. But there, Vander appears to her and tells her that she can't quit, no matter how hard it is, for the simple reason that other people, her sister especially, still need her, so she doesn't have the option of giving up. She must endure the struggle and keep going because it's the right thing to do. Vi then stands up and continues the fight. Before I disclose the meaning of this scene, I'll expose and debunk the wrong interpretation I mentioned and that you might have heard too. Some people say that here, Vi is reminded of the fact that she fights to protect her loved ones, not just to attack her enemies. And especially under the video of this fight on YouTube, you can read infinite comments about how, after this vision of Vander, she blocks Sevika attack for the first time, after never blocking during her previous fights, and finding in defense, for herself and others, the key move allowing her to win against Sevika. This is false. Vi has been blocking attacks along the whole series as well as in the first part of this fight. Here are some examples, previous to the moment. From her fights in episode 3, episode 5, already against Sevika, episode 8, and the first part of this fight in episode 9. So by blocking now, after she saw Vander, she is not doing anything new. The new thing Vi does here is standing up after almost passing out, deciding to continue the fight, not because she sees a chance to win, but because it's the right thing to do, and not running away even if one Hextech gauntlet is broken and Sevika is charging her with a very powerful attack. Here Vi demonstrates one core trait of her. She might not be the strongest, but she's the one with the most courage and perseverance to prove herself and squeeze any good she can from even unfavorable situations instead of quitting. In fact, this is linked to the true meaning of her hallucination of wonder. Wonder here is not encouraging Vi to keep fighting. As said previously, he rejects violence as a solution, even when it's used for defense. I doubt that in the past he encouraged Vi to fight to protect her loved ones, since we have seen two scenes in Act 1, Season 1, in which he dissuades Vi from doing it, explaining why fighting has bad consequences. I think that here Vi is hallucinating or remembering Wander's encouragement not specifically for fighting, but more in general for putting effort and taking on difficult tasks for the sake of loved ones. In fact, Wander in this vision does not mention anything directly related to fights. He just says that Vi must resist through hard moments because other people rely on her. Since Vi is currently engaged in a fight, and anyway she always resorts to fight, she is the one taking this advice from Wander and applying it to fights specifically, independently if Wander referred to another context. This attitude of taking on difficult challenges might have already been deduced by how quickly she engages in fights without hesitating all along the series. But this is the only scene that makes it extremely evident, highlighting the moment in which Vi has to choose if she will keep fighting or quit, and revealing the internal motivation for her choice. Additionally, she accidentally discovers a new power of the Hextech gauntlet she was not aware of, which is this kind of light shield. She activates a special power of the gauntlets that she had not used before, when she only focused on empowering the punches. Now that she is only left with one gauntlet, and therefore in an unfavorable situation, by not giving up, she is able to unlock, literally and figuratively, new resources she did not know she had in her, in order to overcome a very dire moment. So, Vi's logic is that any problem can be approached with punches, and the fight itself will result into a solution, or in a failure if she doesn't deserve a solution. The fight will determine this, and she is always willing to expose herself to the risk instead of the people she cares for. Therefore, she accepts that her opponent fights back and hurts her because it's the law of the fight, and she prefers receiving blows in the first person if this means defending others. This logic of self-sacrifice is evident when she is young already, in episode 2, after Wander taught her responsibility and, for the first time, she gives up fighting, preferring to let enforcers arrest her to protect her family. But in episode 3, she is already fighting again to protect her family, again with a self-sacrificing attitude, since she does not run away from the clear danger of her opponents. Vi has a similar approach even to abstract problems. If something feels wrong, she'll throw punches as first reaction to fix it. For example, in episode 4, we see her punching a prison's wall. She's probably pouring out the frustration and sufferance for her condition as an inmate. Of course, that won't solve the problem, but if she does it, it means that it feels somewhat relieving or helpful to her. She's doing an action that usually solves her problems, and simultaneously she's hurting herself. It's a sort of fighting back that she received from fighting the problem. And as we have already discussed, she accepts problem hurting her and winning over her if that is decided through a fight. This might be the implicit logic at play in her mind. She reacts in the exact same way in episode 8, season 2, when Jinx escapes while trapping her in a prison cell. And probably in her pit fight era too, she's trying to punch away the breakup with Caitlyn while receiving punches as a compliment for her problems winning over her. Sometimes it is not clear if Vi is actually picking fights with people who represent a real problem to her, or if she is using them as an excuse to pour out frustration. For example, in episode 5, she finds Sevika and she immediately starts fighting against her. Vi was looking for Silco in order to find out if he had hurt her sister and finds instead Sevika, his lieutenant. Maybe she wanted to subdue her in order to interrogate her, but her strategy is not very efficient. She could have asked for Caitlyn's help, or tried to spy on Sevika before openly facing her. Instead, as soon as she sees her, she aggresses her. I think that among her motivations, there is also a component of picking a fight to punch away her worry for her sister and her hunger for the loss of her family. Later, Caitlyn scolds her for letting Sevika and Silco know about her comeback, because it's a move that doesn't make much sense. Similarly, when Silco's goon arrives in prison, he does not represent a real problem, a real threat to Vi. She even already bet his butt in episode 3, but as soon as she sees him, she breaks his jaw and obtains detention in isolation. So she doesn't gain much, but she got to pour out her anger against Silco on a person she perceives like an extension of Silco. This confusion in Vi between real fights and fights against herself is coherent with her attitude of self-sacrifice, as if she were proving herself in every fight and being punished if resulted unworthy. All that we covered until here were actually basics about Vi's hands, because now come the real surprising revelations. Comment with the emoji of a hand if you have watched until this point. We're about to explore how Vi's hands tell a story about her and Powder. Vi has always been very protective of Powder. In episode 2, when she is secretly saying goodbye to her forever, she touches her cheek very sweetly with her hand. Those hands can be very violent against danger, but also very kind with the people she loves. In episode 3, Vi not only defends her family, like she always does, but she even takes up arms in order to absolve these tasks better. She officially takes the role of the defender. Then, after the death of Bounder and her family, she deals with the cause of such a destruction, her sister Powder. Vi is out of herself. She grabs Powder's face very harshly, a very different touch than the previous one. In this moment of deep confusion and sorrow, she sees Powder as the cause of her family's death, therefore as a threat against her family, a problem causing distress. She deals with it like she deals with all her problems, with a punch. She quickly realizes how wrong this action was. Vi looks at her hand, stained with Powder's nosebleed. Suddenly she realizes how much harm it can bring, especially to a loved person she is supposed to protect. She is scared of the danger she herself represents for Powder in that moment. She realizes she cannot deal with her properly and decides to leave for a moment in order to protect her. She won't able to come back to her sister until many years later in episode 6. The first thing she does when she finds her is hugging her. The second thing is gently cupping her cheek with her hand, exactly like she used to do when they were younger. Another gentle touch to connect with her is a few moments later, when Jinx is getting stressed because of Caitlyn's presence and some hallucinations. Vi touches her arm. Jinx is not used to be touched. I might discuss this further in a future video. So this contact is particularly significant for her, and also distressing since it triggers some other hallucinations. Then the sisters are divided again. Despite the following events and information Vi receives about Jinx, she keeps fighting to save Powder. She does not accept that Powder is dead. She doesn't quit her fight. As said, she carries out her fight mainly with fists. She attacks Silco's lieutenant and Shimmer Factory in a try to fight him. She identifies Silco as the villain her sister needs rescue from. As we know, it doesn't work. If we take season 1 alone, it's a complete story that can be read as a tragedy. A young woman doesn't accept the reality of Jinx and keeps trying to save Powder until the inevitable final failure. No matter how hard Vi punched in season 1, she was not able to save Powder. Season 2 starts with the consequences of Vi's failure, the death of Caitlyn's mother and other counselors, as well as a very tense political situation and ultimately a mission to Zone. Vi started to bond with Caitlyn in season 1 until she started counting her among the people she loves and must protect. I won't go much further into the details of how Vi uses her hands with Caitlyn, but I'll just say that it's coherent with this understanding of Vi's hands, since she uses gentle touches with her too, and in episode 3 she even drops the gauntlets to hug her during their kiss. visually stating a clear difference between her gentle attitude with Caitlyn and the fighting attitude against enemies. And Vi kisses her back only when the gauntlets are not only on the ground, but they fall down horizontally. After the end of season 1, Vi also learned that Jinx is a big danger, whose existence is Vi's fault. Because Jinx started when Vi punched Powder, and because she was not able to stop her before she harmed others. Vi, as usual, is ready to fight to solve this problem. She even accepts becoming an enforcer, as long as this allows her to fight against the problem represented by Jinx and protect Caitlyn. And she has gauntlets to increase the effectiveness of her punches. Despite the gauntlets, Vi's fight doesn't obtain the wished results. Rather the contrary. Again, her fists fail to reach her goal. Then Vi spends some time in a pit fight contest to punch her failures and sorrow away, until Jinx comes and recruits her to find Wonder. At the start of the search for Wonder, Vi wears her gauntlets, symbolizing her persistent hostility towards Jinx. If they were to fight, Vi is ready to hit her at the hardest degree she is able to. While talking and arguing, the two of them connect again, until Vi drops her gauntlets. There, Jinx slaps her. It could be a sign that Jinx too is able to fight as well as Vi, and doesn't need her protection anymore. It could be a symbol for Powder repaying Vi's punch, finally re-establishing balance between them. Certainly, it is at least the start of a sisterly brawl. It is very clearly a sisterly brawl. Vi and Jinx become again two sisters in this fight. None of them uses her special weapons. None of them seriously tries to hurt the other. They only try to subdue and annoy each other, like young sisters sometimes do when they argue too vehemently. Vi's hands stop as soon as they unintentionally, seriously hurt somebody in that scene. Isha, who, as already discussed in another video, is an extension of Jinx and Powder. Vi stops as soon as she risks causing actual harm, which therefore was never her primary goal in this brawl. Soon after, the sisters and Isha find an area with all belongings of Vander and Silco, and a letter of apology addressed from the former to the latter. While reflecting on the hostility of their adoptive fathers and the wish for their reconciliation, Vi and Jinx silently reflect on the possibility of their own reconciliation too. While Jinx is giving her her back, Vi's bare hand almost reaches to Jinx, but then hesitates and ends up slipping again into the gauntlet nearby. Vi is considering the reconciliation and reconnection with Jinx, but isn't ready for it yet, remaining wary. She still thinks that punches might be needed with her. Soon after this, she is confronted to a big choice between trusting Jinx or using her fists. Not directed to Jinx herself, but to Warwick, whom Jinx promises is actually Wonder. Vi sees an unhinged monster quickly approaching and starts fighting in order to protect Jinx and Isha. However, Jinx begs her to trust her and stop. Vi has to choose. How will she protect the sister she is reconnecting with? By fighting, like she has always done, or through another approach involving trust, reliability, second possibilities, and ultimately love? We know which answer Vi chooses. This is not the last problem she will face, and the distancing from violence is not final, but it is a clue of what Vi's core problem is and what the solution might be. She can't fight alone all her problems away, especially since she already tested it and was not able to save her sister as she intended in season 1. Now she finds that collaboration and mutual alliance, accepting help and letting others guide her, is another possible approach. Punches, as Vander told her in season 1, might not be the universal solution to everything. After all, since she stopped fighting against Jinx, she was able to find Powder in a certain sense, and family again. Vi tends to run into fights, which is very brave from her, but maybe also a bit mindless, since she doesn't stop to think about the best approach first. The hug with Vander, Jinx, and Isha doesn't fix Vi's impetuosity. It's a hint about one of her core problems and possible solutions, as a start for her awareness, but not a fulfillment of her weak points yet. We see this later in episode 8. Vi tries rescuing Jinx and is instead tricked by her and locked in a prison cell while she runs away, and Vi's first reaction is punching the wall. Again, she sees an evident problem, Jinx's escape and her sudden detention in the cell, and recognizes her mistaken choice. The solution? Throwing fists at the wall of the cell that imprisons her and prevents her from acting to fix the situation, and being hurt while fighting against the abstract problem of her poor judgment. Then, in the final battle, Vi and Jinx fight together. Vi is wearing the gauntlets, of course, but she is not using them against Jinx, but rather to protect her, while Jinx protects her. After Victor's defeat, Vi awakens and drops one gauntlet. She still has the other one, so she can still use its power to fight, but also she is quite vulnerable on her parallel side. At that moment, she is particularly vulnerable to recognizing wonder again in the corpse of the monster, which makes her overlook her own safety, both because she does not leave the unstable metal structure she's on, like Jinx suggests, and because the monster is not a corpse at all. In fact, Vi is attacked by the monster and struggles defending herself. Here Jinx steps in to protect Vi. The roles are suddenly inverted than the usual. Before Jinx falls off the metal structure, Vi still manages to catch her with her hand in the big gauntlet. She's still using her protective readiness for her sister. She's still fighting to save her. And she is still exposing herself to risk for her sister. The metal structure is more and more unstable, and she is in danger too. This is another situation in which Vi tries to use her weapons to solve the situation. In this case, the weapons are the gauntlets that arm her usual fists and are a symbol of her tendency to fight and take risks to protect others. But in this case, she fails because of the gauntlet, a symbol of her fighting attitude. If she had grabbed Jinx with her bare hand, Jinx could not have deactivated her hold. Instead, Vi fails to keep her sister alive because of the gauntlet, which she thought made her more effective at protecting her. From Jinx's side too, this event has an important symbolism. She does not simply let go of Vi. She actively turns Vi's gauntlet off and lets it fall down and disappear with her. She is turning Vi's weapons, Vi's fighting gears, off, while also removing the reason for Vi's protectiveness, Jinx herself. Jinx is freeing Vi from her role of protective fighter. I think that Jinx survives, but as I already mentioned in a video essay focused on Jinx's identity, letting Vi believe she is dead will keep her free from always feeling responsible for her protection. I think that this is the only possible solution for Vi, unfortunately. But it is not a bad ending, rather the contrary. Vi's character is very steady. She goes through several events and difficult choices without, however, actually evolving and solving her core flaw, this stubbornness in fighting to save her sister. Because of the many dire events they went through, Jinx cannot be saved as Vi wished for. Vi's fatal punch to Powder can't be undone, and Vi does not have the power of Victor to change the reality and make it better. They have to deal with the reality they have, which makes a happy ending together impossible. Vi never accepts this through the series. She never evolves from fixing her unfixable creation of Jinx, be it to rescue Powder or to avenge Caitlyn's mother. At the end, by leaving her, Jinx finally frees Vi from this impossible goal. With this action, Jinx finally and forcibly puts Vi, who never evolved, in a position in which she can and must evolve. The end of Arcane is the start of Vi's evolution. I think that this is a peculiar character arc, but still an arc. All along the series, Vi pursued the impossible goal she wanted, but what she actually needed was quitting this goal. At the end, she is finally forced to abandon her goal, therefore fulfilling her implicit need. The fact that she is so stubborn about saving her sister, and in the end she needs her sister to save her from her stubbornness and force change on her, in my opinion, is not a sign of passivity. She is a very active character in trying to pursue her goal. Sticking to a goal destined to failure is typical of tragic characters, not necessarily passive ones. Vi is mainly a tragic character, except that at the end, Jinx saves her by giving her, if not exactly a happy ending, at least a new start for healing, which I have discussed in a video essay about Vi and Caitlyn's last words. Do you agree with this interpretation of Vi's character symbolized through her hands? Let me know in the comments. Please like this video and subscribe for more arcane analysis. Bye!